Hey everybody, appreciate your time. We got AZ here. As always, raise your hand and I'll call on you. Let's start with Tyler Donahue, 247. Go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you, Greg. Hey, Z, thanks for the time today on signing day.
All right, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you.
I wanted to ask about Joshua Johnson from Ohio. You mentioned during the broadcast this morning that you're not sure you've seen a more physical defensive back in the recent cycle. So could you expand on that for us? And ultimately, what does he bring to the defensive backfield?
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned the physicality. I mean, when we first laid eyes on his tape, um, he was depleting ball carriers, and from the cornerback position, which sometimes is rare. Usually, you see that from the safety position. Or linebacker position, but from the cornerback position and some of the variety of coverages that they run over there in Ironton, his ability to uncoil, if you read the handbook on cornerback play, really you don't see corners being ankle biters or willing tacklers. But as you see from our own defensive backfield here at Penn State, like uh, physicality won't be, something that's low on our priority list. Like that's a non-negotiable. That's a standard. So seeing Josh Johnson's tape a couple years ago or last year actually, I was very intrigued by it, and then we just started tracking him and got him up to campus and realized how big he actually was. We found out what he ran, and he fit the mold pretty good in terms of defensive back here at Penn State. The good thing is, at the cornerback position, you need feet, and that's what he had. So I think he's going to bring a lot of playmaking ability, which he has a great innate job to anticipate the ball being thrown and making a play on it, and just the physicality part of his game I really like. So I think that can bring some position flex to him, where he can play anything in the defensive backfield, but his foot speed and his ability to run certainly is geared right now at that cornerback position. But I think that playmaking ability he has is something that we look for, and he has.
Go to Ryan Snyder, followed by Seth Engel.
Thanks, AZ. Your answer there kind of hit on one of the guys I had in mind for this question, but from a recruiting service perspective, who do you think we're sleeping on? Are there a couple guys that, maybe if we had more information on, in your eyes could be higher ranked?
Well, I don't, just like when I was a player, I never looked at statistics. I just put my head down and work. So I'm not really sure where these guys stack up in terms of ranking. Um, but one guy that I was rooting on, making sure that we get from an offensive perspective is Oughton. And then you look at like who he was being recruited by. I think he was committed to Virginia Tech. Um, but his talent, I mean, I remember we watched it as a staff, and it's like it was almost like everybody in the room was singing the same praises, you know what I mean? And I don't really hear his name brought up a lot, but he's a dynamic talent, and he's going to be somebody that I feel like Andy Kolonicki will be able to use in a variety of different ways. But he's going to bring a lot of value to the offense and to our ball club in many ways. He's just a dynamic athlete, and he brings a lot to the table.
Let's go to Seth Engel, followed by Max Ralph.
Hey Z, thanks for the time today.
Yes, sir.
We just talked to Andy Frank, and he talked a little bit about NIL and how kind of the NIL crew and also some of the recruiting staff, they're now talking to agents and handling contracts. It's just this whole different world. From your perspective, as someone who is around in kind of the more traditional recruiting era, how have you kind of transitioned that, and what's it like now to work with, maybe agents and some of these contracts you weren't working with before?
I mean, we have like, separate departments that work with that type of stuff. So, I mean, that's not something that I do. But of course, you're going to, talk to agents and people that represent these athletes. That's different, you know. You almost have to, you feel like in some recruiting situations where you talk to them more than you talk to the actual parents, which that's different, obviously. But these agents are connected to a lot of players. So getting to know them, getting to know how they work and what to expect from them is critical because, a lot of times you're going to be talking to the same guy because he's usually tied to a region and you want to have good rapport and good relationships with those guys. So, because those are the guys and he's going to have an idea of who we want and who we like. So it's different, but it's just another piece of the puzzle or to getting a kid to Penn State. So it's different, but you know, it's something that, it's not really a problem.
Let's go to Max Ralph, followed by Greg Pickle.
Hey, appreciate it. We heard a fair bit from Andy about LeVar, but to expand out to the rest of the linebacking group, you guys had to go out and flip Cam, and then Deshaun and Alex are both guys who kind of played all over the place. I know Deshaun could probably end up as an edge with you guys, but what stands out about that selection of players you brought in?
Well, Alex Alex played linebacker. Now he played running back, but that's like Tony Rojas. So, I mean, he's a linebacker. Deshaun Burnett, yeah, he played all over the place, but he's a dynamic athlete. And his team called to play on that. But I just think overall, from a linebacker class, there's a lot of speed. You think about Cam Smith. Cam Smith won a state championship in New Jersey. And then he goes across the bridge and gets with St. Joe's Prep. And you're talking to the St. Joe's Prep team and those guys that come up, and Cam's name would come up all the time throughout the year, talking about, man, he might be the fastest on the team, and his brother was known in Jersey and being one of the fastest guys. So, a guy that can go 0 to 60 very quick. I mean, you need guys that can run. LeVar's the same way, but he's in a 6'3" frame. He ran a high, I think he ran like a 10.8, 10.9 or something like that. So at the linebacker position, he's very fast. And then you look at Tash. Tash is a guy is blue collar, brass knuckle type player that's gonna, bring that physicality. That's what pops off the film, and his ability to navigate the box very well, probably because he was a running back. That's the same thing with Tony Rojas, that we've seen. And then you got Deshaun Burnett. Deshaun Burnett, he can be used in a variety of different ways just because he's so dynamic. So, we see him in a couple of different spots for us, but certainly he can play any of them. So we're very excited about those guys that we brought in.
Let's go to Greg Pickle, followed by Daniel Gallen.
Alan, you said that Matthew Alton was the guy you were rooting for to make sure you guys got on offense. Who was that guy for you on defense?
Well, just recently, we felt really good about the defensive guys throughout the summer and stuff like that. But I guess with that question, I know Jameer Joseph. That was from a region standpoint, a guy that we were recruiting for a long time. Watched him play basketball. And he had like big level schools coming after him. We would go our coaches would go to the basketball games and then realize like University of Georgia's in there, Oklahoma's in there, like so. Understanding we were going to have to battle for a guy like that, but he's in region, like we got to win on that. He has to come to Penn State. But and then even Darius Dixon, although he's across the country, it's like when you see where he comes from, the type of game he can bring to the table, that was I felt like that was a big get as well. But the guy that comes to my mind the minute you say that is Chaz Coleman. I think that kid, he's as dynamic athlete as we've had in a while. You watch his basketball clips, it's the way that he can flush the basketball is special. And then, I think we're just scratching the surface from a football aspect. And he's pretty natural at that. I mean, you watch him play tight end. He's very natural at that and gifted on the offensive side of the ball. But then like his ability to bend, make plays on defense, you feel like the sky's the limit for a kid like that. I think when he gets with Dion and he's the vet and he really starts to get polished, I think he's going to be as good as anybody in the country when it's all said and done.
Let's go to Daniel Gallon, followed by Mark Brennan.
Appreciate your time today. When we were talking to Andy earlier, he said that you and Darius Dixon formed a pretty strong connection during this process. Can you walk us through what it was like building that connection, and what about Darius really stands out to you as someone who has, a ton of experience in the defensive backfield?
Well, I'll answer that last part first. Coming from the school that he comes from, obviously he's playing some of the best talent in the country. Then, you watch his fundamentals and the way that he plays the cornerback position. He has a really good feel and handle on that part of it. And he's doing things in high school at a high level already. But I also feel like there's so much more improvement that can be done in his game, which gets me very excited. And then he's physical as hell. You watch his tape and the way that he tackles, he almost tackles like a safety in terms of playing behind his pads. And I loved how Mater Dei used them. They used them all over the place. In some third down packages, they would line them up in the slot. They would line them up at safety. And his skill set transcended through all those positions on the field, which was very exciting. But, Darius, the way that he was, raised, it's very similar in terms of, the morals and values that my parents is instilled in me. He's a hardworking, no nonsense. He wants to get, when we were talking to him today on the, in our signing show, the minute I brung up, well, it's time for, when you're going to be here in a couple of weeks, and his face lit up with a smile. That's all he cares about is getting to Penn State, putting in the work, and being a part of something special. And he's no nonsense. To me, that's like the fabric of being a Penn Stater. And we connected on that part of it, first and foremost. And then, from there, he just, he's the type of guy that I want in the program. And I grew to be very fond of, and I loved his drive and work ethic. And then his family's phenomenal. I love his mom and dad. So it was a no-brainer for me. And, when I feel that way about a prospect, I become so driven and determined to have that prospect and family see Penn State through my lens and what this place has done for me. So I'm glad that it was able to work out.
Let's go to Mark Brennan, followed by Tyler Donahue.
Hey, Z, thanks for your time.
Yes, sir.
Can you take us through how things played out with the tight end Kordovich kind of late and what he's like as a player, and kind of speak to the importance of um, staying connected to some of these guys who are committed to other schools because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's that's just the foundation of our recruiting department and what we call here at Penn State the kennel. We don't sever bridges. We really try to, if they go a different direction, if we were really in on the prospect, there probably was a true, genuine, authentic bond formed where we wish for them that have nothing but success and the best. There's no hard feelings. And a lot of times, that I've seen in my 4 years here, they may, have, different feelings about where they committed to. So it's very important to stay connected but again, we really when we go about our business, we really try to genuinely connect to them and to the family that, when we're checking in on them, yeah, we would like them to be at Penn State, but we might be just authentically checking in on them. And I think that comes across that way. And then when you get into at Happy Valley, like you guys probably have felt as well, as you just feel different when you're in Happy Valley. And we get the same sentiment all the time. Well, I didn't know it was like this. Wow, this is really nice. And, that brings me to say, like, we just have to get the prospect on campus and it takes care of itself, but it's very important. But in terms of Gornovich is that, he came to camp and he blew us away in terms of his testing numbers, what his measurements were. So he was always on the radar. And, although he was committed to Purdue, we continued on tracking him. I mean, that's one thing that's a non-negotiable in my line of work is continued tracking. They can, change in a heartbeat in a year's time, and they might be good enough for Penn State. Well, with him, we knew that he checked a lot of boxes in terms of measurables, times, and all that. And we just kept on tracking him as a football player. And, when there was a need, for that tight end position, we wanted to see if, he was interested as well. And I'm glad that it worked out because what I see is an outstanding family and foundation. And I see a tight end that can be molded into something very special with Ty Howell's tutelage. So I'm excited about him joining the family.
Let's go to Tyler and then Ryan.
Alan, I just wanted to get back to a couple of cornerbacks. I know you mentioned him in kind of passing as being a regional guy that was a priority, but can you talk us through the game of Jameer Joseph coming out of St. Joe's Regional in New Jersey, what you like about him as a fit, and then also with Xavier Thomas from Western PA, why he was such a priority for you guys at this position as well?
Yeah, so like with Xavier, and Pennsylvania is going to be a place that we're probably going to have more information on prospects just because we're closer. And before I was here, I guess they recruited or knew of Xavier's older brother that plays in the NFL, so they were very familiar with the family. He came out to camp and he killed it. I mean, he locked down every wide receiver that was there. He ran very well, very fluid hips, and he was a competitor. It was hard to get him to not take a rep because he was stealing reps at camp, and just successful every time he went out there. So we really took notice to all of that. We just was monitoring, how tall he was getting. And, when he did reach a mark that we were very comfortable with, we were, ready to offer him. And that's how that went. And then, you see this year, although all these high school players, there's no perfect player. There's a lot of development that needs to take place, but um, with him, it's a bright spot in terms of, I mean, he's just so successful in any area of the game that you want to plug him in at. He's killing it offensively, he's killing it defensively, and I love the fact that in the meaningful games, like we're at the end, leading up to playoffs and through playoffs, he's been going off. I mean, he's been getting interceptions, he's been scoring touchdowns, he's a punt returner, he's a dynamic athlete. Um, and he wants to be at Penn State. I can't stress that enough. Guys that want to be at Penn State. So I know we're going to get everything that we need out of that young man. And then with Jameer, Jameer, the first thing, I mean, first of all, he's a dynamic athlete in terms of you put him on the back. I've watched live basketball games. There's a kid that's ranked very high. I don't know his name. I think he plays for Don Bosco, but he's a basketball player. And now, whenever this kid would get on a fast break, get a steal, yeah, there was nothing stopping him. But when they got the ball to half court and Jameer had to cover him, he was locking him down the whole game. And Jameer, if you're standing around the bucket, he will dunk on you. You know what I'm saying? So, and he's all conference or in the Big North, which is a big deal in terms of basketball. And he's a football player. He's going to be 1,000-point scorer for his high school. But again, he's a competitor. He oftentimes, I used to, his high school career is over, but I used to really look forward to when he played Bergen Catholic and that showdown between him and Quincy Porter. And it's going to be pretty neat because obviously you guys know he signed with Ohio State, and that is going to be something that's going to be covered at ESPN one day. But I mean, you watch the in between the whistles, the way that he's competing, the way that he's letting the opposing team know that he ain't going nowhere, from his physicality when he's tackling to when he's covering guys. And, when I was tracking him, I think we were 7 games in and I had only one completion caught on him. And I told him that. He was like, I don't think that was me, coach. I don't think that was me. I don't have any completions on me. So he's like, he's so super critical on his own game. He's a man defender, but he's savvy enough to read route concepts and zone. But he's a finisher and a playmaker as well. So there's a lot to love about Jameer Joseph's game. But again, man, like when he gets in-house and he's with Jordan, Lucas, Vic and Coach T, they're going to make him into a player that, he dreamt of. So I'm really excited about him.
Got time for one more. Ryan Snyder.
Thanks, AZ. Last thing, I believe Roswell Thomas is the only DB we haven't asked you about. Talk about his early recruitment and how much that camp performance changed everything. I thought he had one of the best camps of any prospects we watched this year.
Yeah. So, when it comes to him, we watched this tape a bunch leading up to when I first seen him in camp. And the thing that jumped out, and guys, I know I sound like a broken record, but I would like to think that I was a physical player, or I tried to play physical when I was here at Penn State. And that is like a non-negotiable to me. So like when I see, if I don't see that, I'm not going to be totally on board with bringing that prospect in. I'm going to tell you that right now. So that's a non-negotiable with me. That was the one thing that I seen on tape. I mean, he was trying to saw ball carriers in two. He played reckless. And he was just, trying to get to the ball no matter what. I mean, his pursuit was relentless. So that was a thing that jumped off the tape. Now, his competition that he was playing wasn't that good, so I didn't know, really how it would translate to Penn State. Then I seen seen him in person. He was at camp, and I mean, he measures. I want to say like 6'2". Yeah, 6'2", 185. So like I'm 6'1 3/4", so he's about my height. A really good length. Then he ran. I believe he ran like a high 4.4, something like that. Um, so you're like, damn, man, this young man's a 6'2" kid that can run a 4.4 like that. Those guys don't, in our region, don't pop up every day. Okay. And then man, I seen him play wide receiver, and the way that he was sinking his hips and the catches he was making, I said, we got to have him. We got to have him. We pay our coaches good money to get guys ready to go at this level, but he's already got those traits that makes a successful player in the Big Ten, makes a successful player at Penn State, makes a successful player that I've seen in my time here. So, and his mindset, he's so determined. You know, I know that he hurt his arm, but he never, he was never down. He knows he's going to come back, and his mindset is of a champion, a winner to me. So, his athleticism, how tall he is, his length, and his speed, I think those are going to be things that's going to pop on film when it's time to put on the blue and white. But he's physical. He's a physical ball player, which that's a thing that's a non-negotiable for me. But I love that about his game.
That's one.
All right, appreciate you, AZ. We'll have
Awesome.
Kenny Sanders